My full name is Joseph Jimmy Sankaituah. I previously worked for Search for Common Ground, where I came in contact with the SAS team. I was the country director for Search for Common Ground Sierra Leone and Liberia, when both countries in 2018 were preparing to transition. And so as country director, I had to manage the process of the transition. So in the three countries in the Mano River Union where Search for Common Ground worked, the three countries agreed to set up Talking Drum Studio as a local entity. And I'm pleased to report that all three organizations are functioning very well. When we started the transition here, there was very little information about SAS available to us. And so what my engagement with SAS in Nairobi, Kenya did was the fact that it exposed me to new tools, new ways of looking at transition, but also created a connection between some of the organizations that were going through the same process and to be able to help me understand better what it means when international organizations transition. But importantly was around the power dynamics. So as an international organization, we've had all the powers. We had to dictate what happens and how it happened. And this time in the process of the transition, we needed to make sure that national organizations take ownership. So what the SAS engagement did for me is that it exposed me to understanding and appreciating the opportunity to allow national organizations, national staff, who were eventually managing the organization, to take ownership of the transition at the very beginning. And what I needed to be providing was to provide guidance to them as they go through that process. So all of that accumulated into success that we see today, because it just provided for us, I would say, the space to be able to reflect better and the tools to be able to review what we were doing and how we wanted to do it. And based on the experiences and the resources that were available, it made it easier to create that kind of connection for the benefit of the organization that I was leading, because I was very determined to succeed with the transition. And I think that success is measured by what is happening today, even while I'm away. So we, as an international, we're now positioning ourselves to begin to have the conversation about how do we make sure we respond to the needs of not just a national organization, but also our donors who are now demanding that we give greater leverage to national organization. And what that conversation in DC drew to me was the fact that these are the very things we've been discussing at SAS. So to say, look, if we want to continue on the efforts in development work, we can no more ignore the role and the relevance of national organizations. I was quite excited sitting in that room and saying to myself, these were the things we discussed in Nairobi, Kenya, and these were the things we've been following on throughout with SAS. So make sure that national organizations are given leverage, but then when transitions take place, where international organizations are falling off, they fall off in a way that allow national organizations to step in the space so that there's no vacuum in their absence. So we're saying to ourselves, what percentage of our funding should we allocate to national organizations? What capacity should they have? And my argument was, it's no more about capacity. We should even be holding ourselves responsible if national organizations do not have capacity, because we've been in this space for over 20 years. And these are the organizations we've been working with. So if in 20 years we're not giving them capacity, then we cannot use capacity as a yardstick. We need to realistically see that if we have to have a process where development is driven by the locals, development is driven by those who own the development process to promote sustainability, then it means that we cannot put out the same argument we put out in the 90s when international organizations started going on the continent of Africa, for example, to undertake development. Those were the argument that we are not giving national organizations sufficient funding because they don't have capacity. 30 years later, we cannot be using that same argument even today. I would like to see, national organizations taking greater responsibility for their own communities. Because at the end of the day, that is where they cannot be deported from. No government can expel them from their countries. So if we give them bigger roles and responsibilities in the development of their communities, we are only helping them to take leadership. But I'll only close my eyes to the fact that accountability and transparency should be the center of everything else. Because if we push national organizations to remain accountable to themselves, to their stakeholders, and to the population they serve. We are only doing them to be better at what they do. And I think that's what we as SAS should continue to stress, so that at the end of the day, when we celebrate successes, we are really celebrating successes because we know that sustainability will be the core of the success that we are celebrating.